The spectacle unfolding in the courtroom wasn't merely another procedural moment tucked away in the daily churn of legal affairs, it was, as many quickly began to describe it, a thunderclap, a storm gathering force behind quiet confidence, culminating in a single sentence that would echo far beyond the walls of that judicial chamber. "Did you even read the law?" Those 6 words, posed by Supreme Court Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson, weren't merely a rebuttal. They were a line in the sand, a declaration that truth still mattered, and that the manipulation of the law for the sake of ideology would not go unchallenged, not on her watch. As the dust settled, observers across the country found themselves asking, how had Pam Bondi, a seasoned political figure with years of courtroom experience, managed to so grossly underestimate the very foundation of her argument? And more importantly, how had Justice Jackson managed to so calmly, so thoroughly, and so powerfully unravel it? Pam Bondi's opening remarks had been delivered with all the flair of someone well versed in the theatre of political litigation. Her tone was performative, confident, and laced with a combative edge meant to resonate with a particular audience beyond the courtroom, an audience watching from political corners where truth often takes a backseat to strategy. She began by citing select passages of the U.S. Constitution, threading in loosely connected talking points about government overreach, all in an effort to question the validity of a specific regulatory measure that had come under fire in recent months. But almost immediately, it became clear that Bondi's understanding, or representation, of the law was at best incomplete, and at worst, deliberately deceptive. What Pam Bondi likely hadn't anticipated was that she was presenting her argument before a jurist who didn't just know the law, she embodied its spirit. Ketanji Brown Jackson, the first black woman to serve on the U.S. Supreme Court, has long been recognized for her meticulous attention to legal detail, her measured demeanor, and her refusal to be pulled into partisan distractions. She doesn't wield her authority recklessly, but when called upon to defend the Constitution, she does so with a quiet intensity that leaves no room for ambiguity. And so, as Bondi rattled off her interpretations, framing statutes in a way that fit her narrative, Justice Jackson remained silent, taking notes, absorbing, letting the argument unfold like a rope being unspooled. The moment Jackson spoke, the temperature in the room seemed to shift. Her voice didn't rise, her tone didn't waver, but there was weight in every syllable. "Ms. Bondi," she began, her eyes unwavering, "can you tell me which version of the statute you're citing?" Bondi blinked, clearly caught off guard. She hesitated, flipping through her binder, attempting to regain control. Jackson waited, and then, with the firm clarity of someone unafraid of confrontation but equally uninterested in theatrics, Jackson asked the question, "Did you even read the law?" The courtroom, once filled with the murmuring confidence of Bondi's supporters, went silent. What followed was not a shouting match. It was not an emotional plea or a politically charged monologue. It was, instead, a cold, clean unraveling. Jackson opened her folder, reading directly from the statute Bondi had so confidently mangled. Line by line, she revealed how Bondi had not only misunderstood the text, but had omitted critical clauses that directly undermined her own position. With each sentence, Jackson's voice remained steady. Her inflection never betrayed contempt. There was no smugness, no triumphalism, only the resolute insistence on the truth. Bondi attempted to push back. She redirected to a Supreme Court precedent she claimed supported her view. But once again, Jackson calmly countered, referencing the same precedent but pointing out how Bondi had mischaracterized its holding. It wasn't that Bondi didn't know the case existed. It was that she had twisted its meaning to fit her narrative. Jackson, unimpressed, reminded her that precedent is not a buffet where one picks and chooses. It is binding, holistic, and contextual. By this point, legal observers in the gallery were exchanging looks. What they were witnessing wasn't just a judicial correction, it was a demolition. Jackson's method was surgical. She didn't just poke holes in Bondi's argument. She dismantled the very scaffolding on which it stood. She cited case after case, historical context, legislative intent, and constitutional grounding, all with the ease of someone who had lived within the law for decades. For those watching, it felt like watching a masterclass in jurisprudence. For Bondi, it must have felt like a slow-motion collapse. And yet, what truly made the moment historic wasn't simply the intellectual victory, it was the cultural resonance. In an era when truth is increasingly treated as subjective, When misinformation travels faster than facts. When political figures use courtrooms as stages for performative resistance. Ketanji Brown Jackson reminded the nation that facts still matter. That law is not entertainment. That the courtroom is not a campaign rally. Her takedown wasn't just for Bondi, it was a message to anyone who might believe that charisma can replace comprehension. Within hours of the hearing, clips from the exchange began circulating across social media. Legal Twitter lit up. Justice Jackson just handed out a real-time civics lesson. One user tweeted. Another wrote. Pam Bondi walked into that courtroom with confidence and left with a judicial reality check. Memes exploded. The phrase, "Did you even read the law?" began appearing on mugs, t-shirts, and stickers. Law professors across the country queued up the video for their next lecture. But it wasn't just scholars and pundits who took note, it was the public. Everyday people who really engage with the intricacies of legal debate were suddenly tuning in. And what they saw wasn't boring. It wasn't dry. It was thrilling. Because truth, it turns out, is powerful when delivered with precision. In the days that followed, Bondi attempted damage control. She appeared on a friendly news network, claiming that she was simply raising important constitutional questions, and that debate is healthy for democracy. But the damage had already been done. Jackson's words were immortalized, not because they were flashy or emotional, but because they cut through the fog of spin and reminded the American people what the law actually is, a structure built on careful reading, interpretation, and fidelity to the truth. Jackson, for her part, didn't issue follow-ups. She didn't tweet about the moment. She didn't do interviews. She didn't need to. Her argument stood on its own, not just as a rebuke to Bondi, but as a defense of the judicial process itself. In doing so, she reminded people that the power of the court lies not in spectacle, but in reason. That real authority does not shout, it explains. It does not bully, it clarifies. And most of all, it does not distort, it reveals. Even those in conservative legal circles found themselves grudgingly acknowledging the strength of Jackson's approach. One prominent commentator, known for his criticism of progressive justices, admitted during a panel discussion, "Say what you will about ideological leanings, but Justice Jackson's command of the law is undeniable. That was a masterclass." Another added, "Bondi underestimated her, and that was a mistake." In classrooms, this exchange is already being taught. Law students are analyzing the rhetorical structure of Jackson's questioning, her restraint, her strategy, and they're learning that real advocacy isn't about dominating, it's about illuminating. They're learning that law isn't about who talks the loudest, it's about who reads the deepest. And so, this moment, this courtroom confrontation between a Supreme Court justice and a high-profile conservative attorney, becomes something larger. It becomes a cultural artifact, a reminder, a beacon, not just about this case, or this moment, but about the very purpose of law in a democratic society, about the responsibility of those who interpret it, and the consequences of those who try to weaponize it without understanding it. Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson didn't just win an argument that day, she defended the sanctity of the law itself. She reminded a nation that in a time of political chaos, misinformation, and spectacle, there is still a place where truth is spoken clearly, calmly, and without apology. And she did it not with volume, but with veracity. So the next time a politician, a pundit, or even a well-meaning citizen tries to bend the law to fit their own beliefs, let them remember that courtroom. Let them remember the silence after Jackson's question. Let them remember the law, read aloud, unfiltered, undeniable, and most of all, let them remember those 6 words that now live in legal legend. Did you even read the law? If this powerful moment moved you, if you believe, like we do, that clarity and courage still matter in public life, then make sure you like this video, subscribe to our channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss a moment where truth and justice collide in unforgettable ways. We're just getting started.